What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Jordan Kurtz here along with Clive Cody. We are here with the CJJC 28 Grapple Party preview here. This is brought to you today by Matt Ratz. Want to say a big thank you to everybody for tuning in along with us for the show. Clive, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Man, I'm excited for a day full of grappling matches that are going to be stacked 1 through 19. We've got a 4-man bracket in the mix. We've got some high-level world-traveling grapplers. We've got UFC veterans on the card, guys who get down with some bare-knuckle action on top of being grapplers at a high level. So why don't we go through the main card a little bit here?
Of course, yeah.
So kicking it off on the main card, starting from the top down, we have a matchup between UFC veteran, multiple-time veteran of the CJJC cage as well. We have Cody Brundage out of Factory X. He's taking on Logan Weintraub. This is a matchup between a couple of very high-level grapplers who, I'm really excited to see how it plays out. Yeah. I do believe that, there's some advantages to being a specialist, but there's also a lot of advantages when we see fighters come into our cage because of that experience working off of the wall, the wrestling, so on and so forth. What are your thoughts real quick on that match?
I think it's just so cool when we bring someone from the UFC and we see kind of MMA grappling versus just straight jiu-jitsu. And that's one of the matches I'm looking forward most today is Brundage and Weintraub. So, yeah.
And then in that co-main event matchup, we have another guy who has a plethora of experience as an MMA fighter, but also is a grappler of many years. I believe he's a brown belt himself. He also leads an entire squad of people down there in Southern Colorado at Black Sheep Universe. That's Alejandro the Hurricane Rodriguez. He is taking on Tyler T-Money Hampton out of Paxuco Combat Club. I think that this is a matchup where you're seeing some contrasting styles. You're seeing somebody who is a very long and lanky grappler in Tyler, whereas you're going to have Alejandro who's a little bit more compact, a little bit more of a wrestle-shoot style, if you will, in a sense, but also is going to bring some crazy transitions into the mix. What do you think of this one?
Yeah. One of the things that's so cool about jiu-jitsu is when we bring different body types. You have someone more stocky and more built versus someone who's longer and more rangy. And that's just so cool to see how this one's going to play out in the co-main event.
As far as the feature bout today, we have a matchup between Jason Cassius Mullen, who's going to be taking on Zach Lindsay. This is a matchup between two guys who they also have a lot of MMA experience. Jason is vastly superior. He has the experience from the grappling side of things to MMA fighting. He's been in the mix competing for more than a decade now. But on the flip side, you have someone who is a tremendous athlete in Zach Lindsay. Zach Lindsay, a former collegiate running back. He's also brother of Denver Broncos former standout as well as CU standout Philip Lindsay. So you're going to have a mix of a couple of guys who, again, they bring some contrasting styles into the mix, but we see who wins, the martial artist or the athlete in this particular matchup here.
Yeah, and that's going to happen a lot today where we have those types of matchups against more of the athlete versus straight jiu-jitsu and MMA versus jiu-jitsu as well.
Certainly. And then we have following that, we're going to have a matchup between Alexa Herculex Johnson out of AMAG, Colorado here. This is a 155-pound no-gi matchup. She is taking on Alexandra the Great Anderson out of the Sanctuary Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, both of these ladies are veterans of our cage too as well. Alexandra in her last matchup picked up a tremendous triangle victory. This is one where Alexa, she's had a lot of different experience throughout the different combat sports fields. She has an incredible journey and her story as far as a martial artist goes. I think that it's going to be a really tough test today, though, because Alexandra, yesterday, she looked like she was all business, ready to go, and she is definitely a menacing grappler when it comes to going out there and getting the job done.
Yeah, and I think when it's when we're by the cage makes a big difference for as far as just regular jiu-jitsu versus the cage. So I think it's going to be different for both of them. When you have an advantage as being a veteran of the cage, that's going to be a big advantage for it.
Certainly. And then the next matchup is a 195-pound no-gi matchup, and one of these competitors, man, he's a guy who he's never not entertaining in whatever he does. If you watched his promos all the way leading up to that, I'm talking about Mr. Alaska, Ben Bennett. He's, again, a guy who he's fought on the Contender Series. He's fought for the LFA. He's fought in bare-knuckle boxing matches. He is a veteran of the CJJC cage. He took on a UFC veteran in a very tightly contested matchup with AJ the Ghost Fletcher the last time. And he has taken on Silas Armetta out of Evergreen Jiu-Jitsu. Evergreen Jiu-Jitsu, a very strong program headed by Professor Scotty Miller. This is, going to be a back-and-forth affair of a couple of different contrasting styles. Ben, though, I think that him having the all-around experience of being an MMA fighter, him having the grappling pedigree that he does some work has done work with the guys at Onyx before. He's done work many a times or many a years over there at high altitude, some of the Eastern schools all the way through and through. Again, I just think that he's kind of got that. He's a super nice guy away from the cage. He is as chill as a cucumber. But when it comes time to step in between the lines, Ben Bennett is a man who is a man possessed once he's in there.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at his last match against AJ Fletcher, I actually got to train under AJ at one point, and AJ just has extremely good grappling. He was on the Contender Series, had a great fight on the Contender Series, and won by a flying knee. Just a great athlete, though, but I'm very excited for that match, too.
Definitely. And then rounding out the main card, you have a matchup between another Evergreen Jiu-Jitsu guy in John Sparks. Again, that's a program that's very strong up there, training up in the thin air of Evergreen, Colorado. He's taken on Tyree Woolfork of AMAG, Colorado. Tyree Woolfork has a plethora of experience all the way across the board. Tyree Woolfork fought here at the Stampede just a couple of months ago, and he went up against a guy who's a really strong wrestler who's also a veteran of our CJJC cage. But I'd love to see that, that was a little bit of a spot where there was some opportunity for him in that fight. I love that he is diving into the specialist aspect of it and going and saying, hey, I'm going to address grappling specifically, and let's go in there. Let's compete specifically with this particular rule set. I believe that the CJJC cage rule set is as close of a thing that you can get to an MMA fight without actually having the striking. So,
for sure, yeah.
I love that. I love that he's just taking the martial artist approach to say, hey, well, let's go sharpen that iron. Let's go put ourselves in the fire and let's get forged by it.
For sure. I think that's a great match. All the matches on this card are very stacked. I think it's just so cool that we have a bunch of MMA fighters versus just straight grapplers, and it's going to be a great day of fights.
Certainly. Now, I want to kick this over to one final segment here for us today on the CJJC 28 Grapple Party pre-show, and we're going to bring in my man Clive, put him on a pedestal a little bit here. What are Clive's picks?
Okay, so for one of my matches that I'm most excited for is Mikey Ortiz and Corey Lobato. Now, this is a prelim, and I know both of these guys, so I'm super excited. I actually got to train with Mikey for a little bit, and we would always end up in the weirdest positions, and he would always have an answer for him. And when we saw Mikey and Corey's last fight against Jesse Fabiano, Jesse's very talented. Everyone that Matt Sierra puts out is very talented and competition ready. So they both have losses to Jesse, so the fight just makes perfect sense. But it is going to be main card quality, and honestly, I could not predict this. I think you could predict a coin flip easier. So
very well put there. And what about your number two?
For my number two, I'm going to go with the main event for Cody Brundage and Weintraub. I think it's, like I said previously, it's just going to be MMA power versus straight specializing jiu-jitsu, and I like how you said that the CJJC cage is as close as we can get to MMA without strikes. So,
and with that one, it's there's a little bit of an interesting bit of talk going, maybe a little bit from Logan's side of things, saying, well, I want to see if Cody's grappling is UFC level, and that kind of struck me a little bit, and I know that it burned into Cody's ear a little bit because Cody has $50,000 submissions in the UFC, so that's obviously UFC level grappling. On top of, he has a powerbomb finish against Zach Reese for another bonus out there, and if you have a big, violent guy like Cody, I think it's not always the wisest choice to go poking the bear. But, hey, for some guys, that may be what you need to do to be able to get yourself amped up and to roll with the competition. Like that pick there, Clive.
Yeah. Cody Brundage, his wrestling is completely elite at UFC 300, which is one of the biggest cards in history, even though he didn't get it done against Bo Nickel. His takedown defense and how strong he looked just pushing Bo Nickel and defending the transitions and takedowns. I think his grappling is very legit coming out of Factory X, and everyone's wrestling especially is really good out of Factory X.
And then what about your final pick for the day?
And my final pick is going to be Ashby versus Seth Tumbleson. So these two are really young. Seth is coming off a guillotine finish that I saw. I believe it was at CJJC 26 or 7. But, he just locked up a perfect guillotine and put his opponent to sleep. He's training out of Evergreen too, so everyone they put in is amazing. So.
Yeah, he's Scotty's family there, as well as being a young fighter on the rise, just 19 years young out of Factory X. He's a kid with a lot of bright promise and potential. Great wrestling and his ability to scramble in the process. As you mentioned, he had that tech sub in that last particular matchup that he was there. He's also competed for us on our Grapple Games cards, so he's just a competitor through and through. The kid is a gamer. I'm excited for the entire card through and through, though.
Yeah.
But With that all being said right now, just want to wrap up the CJJC 28 Grapple Party show, pre-show, I should say, brought to you by Matt Rat's podcast. That's going to be a new combat sports-based podcast that is coming to us at the beginning of 2026. I'm Jordan Kurtz here alongside Clive Cody. We will see you on the show.